Got some new parts in from HummerPartsGuy.com. This is the old air filter, the one that was 11 years old, but probably old new stock. It's cleanable, it's usable, it's not terrible. It's got a little bit of rust on what was on the bottom side, the way it was rotated. But overall, it's not that dirty. But got a brand new one. Fresh gasket, correct attached wing nut, correct OEM part, made in USA, and the new stainless toolless clamp that'll allow you to pop it open without any sort of socket and ratchet if you ever need to while you're out and about. If you remember the last video, the other one was the old style with a bolt and a nut, a captive nut, and it was so frozen and stuck on there that even with a lot of heat cycling and penetrating fluid and even using an impact on and off, close, open, it eventually just snapped the bolt. So had to get a new clamp for the outer lid of the air filter box, and I couldn't find any sort of documentation on the coolant overflow cap either as far as when it was replaced, so I went ahead and ordered a brand new OEM one. Here's the old ring. You can see the difference side by side. This one had a bolt that went through to the nut still in there, to that little captive nut, and the bolt finally broke off because these two decided to marry together and I guess freeze in there, and I don't know if it was rust or corrosion or what, but this brand new stainless steel one's gonna be a lot better. And I've got the gasket off of the lid for the airbox. You can see all the gunk around the edges. I'm gonna use some steel wool and get all of that off, get it all cleaned up, and then clean all the gunk off of the rubber gasket as well. If your gasket's not pliable and it's hard, get a new one. This one's still pliable and in pretty good condition. So I'm just gonna clean it up and reuse it. So steel wool along these edges, let's get it cleaned up. Here's the before, and there's the after. Pretty good. I'm gonna wipe it down with some denatured alcohol, get the residue off of there, all the gunk. Here's the other side. I'm gonna do the same thing. Scrub it down with steel wool, and I might hit this side with a coat of heavy duty enamel paint as well once I get it cleaned up. There it is, after a nice scrub down with the steel wool. Got all of the any flaking paint and everything off of there, any gunk and dirt that was stuck on there, got it all off, and now it's ready for a fresh coat of paint. First coat is on. Nice thin coat, just to get a nice tacky surface. All right, that is all done. And in case you're curious, the paint that I used and what I use on most engine parts that don't see a lot of heat, that I like and have good results with over the years, is marine grade enamel that is meant to go on an engine's outdrive on a boat. Works really well, stands up really good to fairly harsh conditions because it's meant to go on an outdrive that's constantly rushing through water at 30, 40, 50, 70 miles an hour. And it holds up really well. It just doesn't do well with high heat. So for high heat applications, do your research, use something you like. But for anything not high heat in an engine and bay, this stuff works really well. I'm gonna let that dry, go put the filter in. I wiped out all the gunk inside the filter housing. You can see my dirty paper towel here. All the stuff that just settled at the bottom and here and there. I stuck my long nose on the vacuum cleaner, cleaned out inside there. On the previous video, a couple of you mentioned the dent here. It's not affecting anything, and I'll show you why in a second, but more than likely somebody put their hand there or sat on it at some point over the years. But on the inside, as you can see, there's another layer. That's the outside, that's the inside. The only place where you can see that dent is the very middle of it, so it's not affecting anything. I try to put my hand in there and push the dent out. It's just too hard for me to do. with the limited amount of space in there. I may try to grab one of the suction cup pullers, maybe 2 of them or 3 of them, and try to pull that out later. It's not really affecting anything. It does look a little, I mean, I would like to fix it, but it's not affecting anything at this point. I'm also gonna go through with some steel wool, just get some of this gunk off of the aluminum housing and the lip. All right, steel wool is pretty much all used up, this piece of it. As you can see, it's nice clean surface everywhere for that rubber gasket to sit on, and all the gunk is gone. You see all this powdery stuff here? That's what comes out. You're just basically sanding some of the surface with that steel wool. So once you finish with steel wool on anything, any sort of parts that have any sort of chance sucking into the engine, don't use a paper towel and just hope it's all clean. Go grab your vacuum cleaner, nice shop vac, something with a lot of suction, and clean everything up, even further in than where you think this stuff might have gotten. And then go grab the vacuum, get all this cleaned up, and then we'll reassemble this. All right, let's get the new filter. That's all clean. Perfect. Nice clean lip. Gently put this new filter in, slide it in, and you'll kind of feel where there's the lip at the end there. You got to slip it over it. Just rotate, wiggle around, it'll get on there. Okay, and now there should be to where we can start threading this guy on. There it is. Make sure you don't cross thread it. If it feels like it's tight, unscrew it and start over. There we go. Perfect. I like to go in there and get it nice and snug and then back off about half a turn. That way you don't over compress the rubber gasket. You get a nice good seal and then back off of it a little bit. All right, filter's on there. Now we've got our cap. Before I put that on, let me check the retainer ring, make sure it all fits correctly and everything. All right, let's get this guy on. Oh, gonna need my second hand to wiggle that past that rubber stopper. All right, that is on. Fits nice and snug. And once we get that outer piece on, it'll be perfect. Last thing I'm gonna do is get this rubber gasket for that cap cleaned up. See, it has a little bit of residue and stuff from either sitting over the years or maybe it wasn't cleaned on the lip and somebody put it back on. Let me get it cleaned up. Got the rubber gasket all cleaned up. If you want, I'm going to go ahead and do this, but I'm going to put a little bead of silicone lubricant on there and just rub it in with my finger on both sides. It'll help it slide around and it won't bind up whenever that cap is coming on and going off. While we wait for that paint to dry on the lid, let's get this cap replaced. Always make sure this thing's not hot as you're removing the lid. Truck's been sitting for a few hours, so it should be okay. While we have it off, let's clean up the lip here just a little bit. It's pretty clean actually, there's not much there. Just old dried coolant it looks like. And on the inside, make sure there's nothing on that inside lip where the rubber gasket at the bottom of the spring seats. Yep, that's okay. All good. All right. Got our new cap. Confirm that it is 15 pounds. It is a factory one. If you get an aftermarket one, make sure it's the correct one. The rubber gasket looks a little thicker on this one, probably just because it's new. Looks like it's same style and everything, comparing it to the old one. Put it on, push slightly, turn, and then push slightly and turn again. That's it. Nice new cap on there. The other thing you want to check every single time you have the hood open on your Hummer is your transmission fluid. Check your transmission fluid every single time you're under here. If you have the 4L80E transmission, which is pretty much on every single one of these Hummers except for the 2006 Alpha with the Duramax and the Allison transmission. Do some Googles, searching, and look for Vampire Hummer or Vampire 4L80E. You'll see what the issue is, but I'm not going to go too much into detail. Just check it. If you're under the hood, pull that dipstick out, clean it, throw it back in there, bring it out, check it, make sure it's all good, and you've got your transmission fluid at the level it's supposed to be at. If not, emergency time. Call someone that knows what they're doing. Once you get the lid on there, so what you want to do is take this clamp off, put the lid and the gasket inside the clamp, make sure the gasket's staying on the lid and not falling out. I had to use 2 hands, sorry. And then just gently continue clamping down on this, not all the way, just a little bit more, just to hold it in place. And as you do that, rub your finger around the back edge of this thing, around that side, all the way around the sides, the bottom, everywhere. Make sure it's all lining up, and if anything's not, just loosen it up a little bit, wiggle around, and make sure that you get everything lined up and where it's supposed to be, and then you'll get it to about this position pretty easily. You see, I don't have to force it, and from here you can just clamp it down, and right there, that's it. So there you go, you got this thing all fixed up, fresh coat of enamel paint. If I ever get around to removing any of this stuff, I'm gonna remove this guy, clean it up, take that dent out, and paint it too. It's just dirty. I don't know, maybe it'll clean up well. Maybe I'm a little too picky on a truck that's meant for running around the desert. There you go. So that's done, coolant cap's done. You see how to get that refreshed and cleaned up if you take yours off at any point, and how to get the filter in and out. Hope you enjoyed the video. Love you guys. I will see you next time.